Finally, it's almost here now. What I mean by that is Onyx recently made a post about the much anticipated governance aspect in regard to this, because they made a post saying how who's ready for Onyx governance on the layer 1. This could really affect Onyx in such a profound way moving forward, in my opinion, especially fundamentally speaking. And I'll talk about all of that in today's video, and I'll talk about the price a little bit later. However, I first want to clarify, this is just my personal perspective. I am not telling anyone to do anything, and nothing I say is financial advice. So we have to take a look at a little bit about the history of Onyx, I think, in order to kind of understand why the recent post they made could be so special and why it could affect it potentially moving forward in such a profound way. Well, because if we take a look at it again, historically speaking, governance when it comes to Onyx, it typically occurred primarily on Ethereum. Now, I mean, it's fine, I suppose, because Ethereum has a lot of people using it, but Onyx recently launched the mainnet of its layer 1 this year, so in 2026. So it's only natural, right, if there is a very amazing way to kind of vote and kind of govern Onyx, but on its layer 1. That would be so impressive, because that's just going to allow for better adoption in regard to the layer 1. Because if we think about it, right, the reason why this could matter so much is because Onyx holders, they want to be able to vote on proposals and stuff like that. They want to be able to govern sometimes a certain project, but then directly on its layer 1. They want that sometimes. And Onyx, I think they understand that this is a crucial step, because when Onyx first launched the mainnet of its layer 1, there was kind of a lot of missing pieces initially. Like, okay, when they first launched it, there was some aspects that was kind of missing, but now we're beginning to see, gradually more and more aspects that are coming along when it comes to its layer 1. Case in point, Onyx Mesh launched not too long ago. We also saw how they recently launched the Explorer for their layer 1. And then also on top of that, now, allegedly, we could very well see governance on the Onyx layer 1 quite soon. Because again, they said who's ready for Onyx governance on the layer 1, and then beside it, they put soon, like an emoji. So let's just let that sink in. So for the people out there that have been telling me Onyx has been doing nothing, I disagree with that. And again, the more and more things that they launch in regard to their layer 1, it's just going to further strengthen the, I guess, validity of it, in a sense where they're treating it very seriously. And initially last year, when Onyx announced that they were going to be launching the testnet of their layer 1, everyone thought it was just going to be a joke. They thought it was just going to be this passion project that they probably wouldn't really care about. And they thought that it was just going to be something made for fun, that they weren't going to treat seriously. But as time goes on, as time went on, I should say, and we saw the testnet, and then we saw the mainnet, and now we're seeing Onyx Mesh, the Explorer, we're seeing the upcoming, governance when it comes to the Onyx layer 1. The more and more stuff that they're doing, it further validifies that, they weren't treating this as a joke. So it wasn't really a joke. A lot of people thought initially that it was going to be treated just for fun, but it's not. It seems like they're treating it very seriously. And there were a couple reasons as to why some of my friends didn't really treat it seriously initially, just because if we take a look at it, right, Onyx planned to launch the mainnet in 2026, and clearly in the beginning of 2026, it wasn't really that good anyways when it comes to Onyx, so everyone thought, oh, it's not good timing and all this. But again, the sooner they launch it, the better it is, because the more issues they can hypothetically find and kind of fix, right? It only makes sense. The sooner they launch something, the more that they can know about what they launch. So to me, it wasn't more so Onyx was trying to launch, its layer 1 due to hype or attention. It didn't seem like that. It seemed like they were trying to launch it to really focus on it, which again, I get why a lot of people thought that 2026 wasn't the best time to launch the mainnet, but I thought it was actually an appropriate time, because they launched it quite soon at a time when people were kind of leaving the market, which gave them time to really focus on the fundamentals. So I don't think it's actually a bad thing. It's like, for instance, a slow rise in terms of like popularity isn't necessarily such a bad thing. In some cases, it's like, for instance, let's say we see a celebrity or an athlete, they become like immediately so popular. Sometimes we see them not handle fame that well in some instances, but sometimes when it's kind of like a slower build, it gives them time to kind of adapt and kind of adjust to the new level of fame, right? So when it comes to, in the case of Onyx launching the layer 1 when they did, it gave them a lot of time to kind of, build things and improve it. As opposed to if, let's say, they launch it in 2026 and let's say for whatever reason there was a full-on altcoin season, they wouldn't have time to kind of fix it properly and kind of, do everything the right way. They would be kind of distracted in all this, I would assume. So then that's why I think the time when they did launch it, it wasn't such a bad time. Maybe it wasn't aligning well with the altcoin space, but hey, you know what? It didn't really have to anyways because its goal is to have better adoption moving forward. Maybe for years and years. So I don't think it was a bad thing. Now, if I take a look at Onyx, it didn't really move much actually. The market cap's still around 120 million. Yeah, hasn't really done much. I mean, it's to the point that if we take a look at Onyx currently, going back to its peak last year, it's around a 9 times movement, which may seem kind of bad at first glance because it's like, whoa, this thing is so low compared to its peak last year. But on the flip side, I would like to ask people this question. Is Onyx better last year in terms of fundamentals? Not in terms of price, but in terms of pure fundamentals. Was it better at its peak last year or right now? Arguably, I think it's way better right now, just because of all the fundamental improvements it had, right? Could you imagine what could happen moving forward, especially now that Onyx is way better fundamentally, and let's say the market sentiment were to return back to last year? If that was the case and Onyx exceeded around $1 billion in terms of market cap, so exceeding its peak last year, wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Like that wouldn't necessarily surprise me, I should say, just because Onyx is way better right now in terms of fundamentals than before. And before it was able to reach much higher, and that was kind of primarily driven through just the market sentiment. Imagine if moving forward, let's say there is a combination of not only a good market sentiment, but also fantastic fundamentals. If it far exceeded what it did last year, it wouldn't surprise me. Who knows when things could recover though, and who knows if it could exceed what it did last year, but it just wouldn't surprise me. And in regard to when this could recover, there's no way I would be able to know that, just because when it comes to this space, it's not like I have some random magic crystal ball to know this or know that. There's no way. I don't have that. And I don't even know if that is even a thing, So when it comes to this, there's no way I would ever be able to figure when things could recover. But one thing I do know though, is that I'm seeing fundamental improvements. And one thing I do know as well is that I can control myself and I'm willing to wait. That's it. I'm still holding, I'm still waiting. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. But if let's say Bitcoin were to return back to its peak last year, it's only around like a 2 times movement from where it is as of right now. Whereas Onyx is around 9 times away from its peak last year. If Onyx returned back to its peak last year and Bitcoin returned back to its peak last year, there would be a major discrepancy in terms of percentage recovery, just because Onyx's peak last year was around $1 billion. Right now, the market cap is around 120 million, whereas Bitcoin, going back to its all-time high, it's just around 2 times away. You know what I mean? That's just the way to take a look at it. However, that's just something that I've noticed. However, even besides all that, when I take a look at Onyx and how they recently said who's ready for Onyx governance on the layer 1, and then after that they put like an emoji saying soon, I think that right there is a clear, indication that they're still trying to improve, and it showcases that they're still planning things. Keep in mind, we're not even done with 2026 yet, and they're doing all of this. 2026, I think, arguably has been the most impressive year for Onyx so far fundamentally, not in terms of the price, but in terms of pure fundamentals. So while others are slowing down, they're keeping on building. And sure, it may not matter right now, but it could eventually matter, especially if things were to recover, because people oftentimes do care about stuff like this. So Onyx, as of right now, is just like what they're planning. That's it. But I'll be sure to make more updates moving forward though. So hopefully y'all stay tuned for that. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a very fantastic day.